The sun hung high over the kingdom of Eldoria, casting golden rays over the marble courtyard of the royal palace. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and the distant hum of bustling marketplaces. Royal guards, clad in polished silver armor, stood at attention, their spears glinting in the sunlight. Among them was Captain Elias, a seasoned warrior with a reputation for unwavering loyalty and sharp instincts. Elias scanned the courtyard, his eyes narrowing, as a peculiar figure approached the palace gates. The visitor was cloaked in dark robes, their face obscured by a hood. In their hands, they carried a small, ornate chest, its surface etched with strange symbols that seemed to shimmer in the light. "Halt! State your business." The visitor stopped, their head tilting slightly as if studying Elias. A low, guttural chuckle escaped their lips. "I bring a gift for the king." Elias exchanged a glance with his fellow guards. Gifts for the king were not uncommon, but something about this visitor set his nerves on edge. The chest in their hands seemed almost alive. "The king does not accept unsolicited gifts. You will have to." Before Elias could finish, the visitor's hand shot out, flinging the chest open. A hiss echoed through the courtyard as a sleek black cobra emerged, its hood flaring menacingly. The guards froze, their training momentarily forgotten as the snake lunged toward Elias. The cobra moved with unnatural speed, its fangs glistening with venom. Elias reacted instinctively, sidestepping the strike and drawing his sword. The blade arced through the air, narrowly missing the snake as it coiled for another attack. "Elias! Form a perimeter. Protect the gates." The guards sprang into action, their spears forming a barrier between the cobra and the palace. But the visitor was not done. With a flick of their wrist, they produced a small flute and began to play a haunting melody. The cobra's movements became more erratic, its strikes more precise. "You cannot stop what is already in motion, Captain." Elias gritted his teeth, his mind racing. This was no ordinary snake. It was being controlled, perhaps even enchanted. He needed to act fast. To a nearby guard, "Get the royal alchemist, now!" As the guard sprinted toward the palace, Elias focused on the cobra. He feinted left, drawing the snake's attention before striking with his sword. The blade connected, slicing through the cobra's body. But instead of dying, the snake dissolved into a cloud of black smoke, its hiss echoing in the air. The visitor laughed, a sound that sent chills down Elias's spine. "Visitor, you are too late, Captain. The king's fate is sealed." With that, the visitor turned and vanished into the crowd. Inside the palace, chaos reigned. The king, a wise but aging ruler, had collapsed in his throne room, his skin pale and his breath labored. The royal physician knelt beside him, his face curse, one I have never seen before. Elias entered the room, his armor still smeared with the cobra's black residue. He knelt before the king, his heart heavy with guilt. "Your Majesty, I failed you." The visitor, "They..." The king raised a trembling hand, silencing Elias. "Do not blame yourself, Captain. This was not your doing. The visitor, they are but a pawn in a larger game." Elias frowned, his mind racing. "A larger game? What do you mean, Your Majesty?" The king's eyes darkened as he struggled to speak. "The Cobra cult. They have returned. They seek to plunge Eldoria into darkness as they did centuries ago." Elias's blood ran cold. The Cobra cult was a legend, a group of dark sorcerers who had once terrorized the kingdom. They were said to have been eradicated, their leaders slain by the king's ancestors. But if the king was right, the cult had risen again, and they were more dangerous than ever. Determined to save the king and uncover the truth, Elias set out on a perilous journey. His first stop was the Temple of Seraphis, an ancient sanctuary hidden deep within the Eldorian forests. It was said that the temple housed a relic capable of curing any curse, the Tear of Seraphis. Accompanied by Lyra, a skilled archer and his most trusted ally, Elias ventured into the forest. The journey was fraught with danger, from venomous creatures to treacherous terrain. But the duo pressed on, their resolve unshaken. As they approached the temple, they were ambushed by cultists, hooded figures wielding curved daggers and chanting in a strange tongue. A fierce battle ensued, with Elias and Lyra fighting back to back. Despite their skill, the cultists seemed endless, their numbers bolstered by dark magic. "We can't keep this up!" We need to get inside the temple. Elias nodded, his sword cutting through the air as he cleared a path. Together they fought their way to the temple's entrance, only to find it sealed by a massive stone door. There must be a way to open it. Lyra noticed a series of symbols etched into the door, matching those on the chest the visitor had carried. Lyra, these symbols, they're a puzzle. We need to align them correctly. With time running out, Elias and Lyra worked together, their fingers tracing the symbols as they deciphered the ancient script. Finally, with a loud groan, the door began to open. Inside the temple, the air was thick with the scent of incense and the faint hum of magic. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings depicting the history of the Cobra cult and their defeat at the hands of Seraphis, the temple's patron deity. At the heart of the temple stood a pedestal, upon which rested the tear of Seraphis, a shimmering gemstone pulsating with a soft, golden light. Elias reached for it, but before he could grasp it, a voice echoed through the chamber. "You dare to take what is not yours, Captain?" Elias turned to see the visitor from the courtyard, their hood now lowered to reveal a face marked by dark tattoos. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and in their hand, they held a staff topped with a cobra's head. "The tear of Seraphis belongs to the Cobra cult. With it, we will reclaim our rightful place as rulers of Eldoria." Elias tightened his grip on his sword, his voice steady. "You will not succeed. The people of Eldoria will never bow to you." The visitor smirked, raising their staff. The ground beneath Elias and Lyra began to tremble as shadowy figures emerged from the darkness. More cultists, their eyes filled with malice. "Visitor, then you will die alongside your king." The temple became a battlefield as Elias and Lyra fought against the cultists and their dark magic. The visitor, now revealed as the cult's high priest, unleashed powerful spells, forcing Elias to rely on his wits and agility to evade their attacks. Lyra, meanwhile, focused on the cultists, her arrows finding their marks with deadly precision. But the cultists were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. As the battle raged on, Elias noticed a pattern in the high priest's movements. Every time they cast a spell, the staff's cobra head glowed brighter. Realizing the staff was the source of their power, Elias devised a plan. To Lyra, "Distract them. I need to get close to the staff." Lyra nodded, unleashing a volley of arrows that forced the cultists to scatter. Seizing the opportunity, Elias charged at the high priest, his sword aimed at the staff. The priest countered with a blast of dark energy, but Elias dodged, his blade slicing through the staff's cobra head. The temple was filled with a blinding light as the staff shattered, its dark magic dissipating. The high priest screamed in rage, their body crumbling to dust. With the high priest defeated, the remaining cultists fled, their morale shattered. Elias and Lyra stood victorious, the tear of Seraphis in their hands. Back at the palace, Elias and Lyra presented the tear of Seraphis to the royal physician. The gemstone's light enveloped the king, purging the curse from his body. Color returned to his cheeks, and his strength was restored. "King, you have done well, Captain. Eldoria owes you a great debt." Elias bowed his head, his heart filled with relief. "It was my duty, Your Majesty, but the Cobra cult may still pose a threat. We must remain vigilant." The king nodded, his expression grave. "Indeed, the darkness may have been pushed back, but it is not yet defeated. We must prepare for what lies ahead." As the sun set over Eldoria, Elias stood on the palace balcony, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The battle was over, but the war was far from won, and he knew that, as long as darkness threatened his kingdom, he would be there to fight it.